of the national capital are not doing enough to deal with waste management. That's not me, but it may be a comment you might have heard before, and it does not look like it will be the last time you'll be hearing such a comment. Just because another advocacy group has again blamed the Accra Metropolitan Assembly for sitting aloof while filth engulfs the national capital of Ghana, Accra, that is. Now, the Global Peace Advocacy and Associates say the current waste collection system employed by the Assembly is improper. Now, in spite of this, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly is set to increase refuse collection fees to take effect immediately. The group argues there are no reduction in conservation strategies and disposal options. They are calling for a change in the wake of the recent cholera outbreak. Let's talk about this over the next few minutes. With me in the studio is Lambert Donko. Lambert Donko is Director and Media Relations for Global Peace Advocacy and Associates. You're welcome to the program, Lambert.
Thank you, Nyamani.
It's good. I mean, that's the first time someone is mentioning my middle name. But what change are we looking for from the AMA? We've seen the AMA go towards the Odo River to try and make some changes. Sure. One would imagine that is a step in the right direction, showing some commitment. What are you expecting from the AMA?
Well, we've seen them taking up several measures, but then it wouldn't be enough. We have to go beyond. As Global Peace Advocates, we want to see beyond waste management being only collecting and dumping refuse, but I want to see where you would create avenues where we would have systems where we could recycle what people would call waste. But for global, we call it resources, because the end point of waste, as they will call it, is where somebody will start generating money from. So, for instance, if people collect those stuff from their home and they happen to have dumped them somewhere, somebody who is a businessman who wants to go into waste management properly would then have to site a recycling plant somewhere. He then collects them and then he starts to probably invest into it so he could get something out from there.
So your concern with the AMA is after the waste has been collected?
That becomes the end point.
What we do at the end point?
You know, the individuals at home would be very happy if the waste leaves them. But at the end point, they don't think about it. But as a nation or our leadership, that's what we have to think about. We must look for avenues where we could make something out of what we call waste. But then those things are rather resources, and that's the point of view Global is coming from.
For a country where over 60% of our waste generated is organic, what can we do with our waste in terms of recycle?
You know what we are talking about. We could even recycle that for composting. Okay, and that
you mean that the organic waste?
Yes, it will really help our agricultural sector, and it will be very productive for us.
Okay.
We're also looking at the place where government should come in, so they could institute regulatory frameworks or institutions that will come up, so they could strengthen that particular sector and enforce laws on waste management.
But if it's a matter of recycle, if it's a matter of the end product after collection, then they are collecting the rubbish. Shouldn't
they are collecting?
Should it lie on government to recycle?
That's where we are calling Global Peace Advocates. We are calling on private individuals, investors, to come in. So if government should open the market for individuals to come in, it will be a very better business for others to also venture. And that will in turn help the nation at large.
I would like to talk about the other issue on the table, the fact that beyond that, or even before that, I mean, let me put it that way, we're looking at paying more for waste collection here in the country. Samuel Kodo he's an environmental health technologist with the AMA. He's joined us over the telephone. He's joined the conversation.
Right.
Samuel, you're welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
The Global Advocacy, Global Peace Advocacy and Associates is asking that indeed we do more about the end point after we collect the waste. The group is looking at recycling whatever we collect from people's homes or wherever we get the waste from. What can the AMA do about this?
Yeah, waste collection is a flow. for that matter. It involves the collection, the transportation, treatment, and the final disposal of the waste. And over the years, we've been engaged in this responsibility. But what we've not been doing is about the treatment, where it involves reusing the waste and then recycling the waste. Over the years, we've just collect and dispose of blueberry. But it is time that we have to put value on our waste and then recycle it and then use it for other products instead of just saying waste is useless and so it should just be discarded. That has not been the case in other countries.
Why can't the AMA take the first step?
Yes, the AMA has been involved in the promotion of the 3 R's, which is the reduction, reuse, and recycling of waste. But then it is expensive or difficult to say waste is useful. And for that matter, we want to actually tap the usefulness of waste. That is, if say there is gas or there is energy in waste, you need machines or you need equipment to actually extract that gas. It's not as easy as just collecting and disposing of. So you need heavy equipment, capital-intensive equipment to do that job. And over the years, we have been involved in promoting that. But then we want to use more of the private sector to do this work. And you must know that for scrap metal waste, it has value. So people pick it from some and then transporting it to thermal steel work and it's turned into iron rods. And that is what we should do to the organic waste, the plastic waste, the textiles, the scraps, the glass, and maybe the inert, which is soil. That is where we must be going. And I think...
okay, so Samuel, the question I asked was geared towards the fact that we know what we should do with the waste when it comes to recycle. But we are not doing it because we are waiting for the private sector. Why can't government also, why can't the AMA, let me put it that way, why can't the AMA take the lead? If this is a lucrative venture that can fetch the assembly some money to develop the municipality, why can't the AMA take the first step? Why is it so difficult for the AMA to manage waste instead of just collect and dump and take money for it?
Yeah, I think recycling is all about, putting value on this waste. But then AMA, I must say that over years back, AMA was involved in the collection of waste, collection and disposal of waste. But along the line, for bureaucratic problems or difficulties, we even handed over the haulage or the collection and disposal to the private sector. And the private sector is all about efficiency and value for money. You say so. We want to involve the private sector and then actually make people be responsible to their waste by paying for the service. It was like people think if government or the municipality is doing it, it should be for free. You see, so we want to promote more of the privatization than the municipality always engage in something which people think should be free, and that should not be the case.
So Samuel, the AMA is incapable of recycling the waste generated in Accra. That's what you're saying?
It's not a matter of incapability.
And because you don't have the money to buy the machines, does that not render you...
Yes, I know, in this country now, we want to promote the private sector to do this job. We have been involved in it, but, there are challenges with the public sector and the private sector. Private sector could pay finance to bring in some efficiency and responsibility. And it is still that when the private sector is working, you still have to maybe monitor their services. So it's not a matter of incapability. We have been involved in waste collection over the years, but we want the private sector to come in. And with the increasing volume of waste and the increasing population in Accra especially, we need to use the private sector to also support.
So I'm going to have you host the line. Back in the studio is Lambert Donko. Lambert Donko is with the Global Peace Advocacy and Associates. Lambert, you've had the conversation so far. What's been your interpretation of it?
I would say from the conversation, he's trying to tell us that they are incapable. That's what he's trying to tell us. But global peace advocacy, we are trying to say that you'd have to liberalize the system, the waste management system, so that people could also come in. When they come in, he was talking about private sector come in. But if you don't liberalize the system, they can't come in.
How do you mean liberalize? Because again, one would imagine that the fact that the private sector is taking the driver's seat in waste collection, not management yet, waste collection here in the country, then you think that is the kind of liberalization you're talking about. You might want to explain liberalization.
We would want to have efficient waste management organizations that will come in. They are not coming to just collect and dump. But people who would come in to send the waste to an endpoint where we would have it recycled in something else, that would be very productive. That's what we are calling for.
I see. Samuel, let's talk about paying for the waste we generate so that it is collected from our homes. We understand that the AMA is reviewing the price tags associated with that. Take us through that. Hello, Samuel.
Can you hear me?
Samuel, yeah, I can now.
Okay. Yes, it's true. Since 2013, tariffs on waste services have not been increased.
Okay.
Looking at where we started from, the fees that is being paid by waste generators now is not realistic. And for that matter, our service providers have made a proposal which we have considered. And for that matter, they need to increase the tariff to ensure efficient waste collection and reliability.
I see. So what are the changes we are going to see?
Yeah, I think so far from what is happening, we're going to increase the service charges as implied to the classification of the service areas. We have the first class, residential areas like Cantonments, Laboni, East Legon. And then we have the second class, which is the Dansuman, Kandishi, Awudomi areas. And then the lower class, like Choko, Mamobi, Accra Newtown, and places like that. So for the new tariff, it's about first class, 100 Ghana cedis. Second class, 60 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And the low class, 20 Ghana cedis.
And this spans over what period of time?
Well, our tariffs are actually are proposed at the end of every year. It's an annual affair, looking at fuel prices, the dollar rate, especially spare parts, and the distances to the landfill site.
Samuel, I have difficulty understanding the payment system when it comes to waste collection in the country, because then I find that some of these waste collectors come to your homes and then take money from you on a daily basis as well. And then on the other hand, we hear the waste collection companies also tell us that the AMA is owing them a lot of money, hence their inability to collect waste from our homes. And then we see our streets lined up with all sorts of refuse. Now my question is, explain to us the collection system, the payment system. Who pays who?
Yes, from the year 2010, we have applied the polluter pay system. Before then, AMA was paying almost 80% of the population, was paying service provided, about 80% of the population to the service provided. That is, waste that is collected from middle to low income areas. Being paid for by AMA to the private contractors. We realized that AMA was spending over 60% of the IGF, that is internally generated fund, on waste management alone.
Okay.
So we actually implemented the polluter pay system, which is the waste generator must pay for the services of collecting their waste. So from then on, waste generators were paying directly to waste contractors since the year 2010. There have been challenges, especially the low fees being paid, and then the inability of some waste generators not paying fees to the contractors. Say, so it's all about bringing on board some sort of efficiency into the system, and then reliability of picking the waste. And that is why we want to increase these fees for everybody to pay the waste collectors, for them to be able to also pick waste as implied in the service contract that we have with them.
So I have two more questions to ask you. First is, okay, so with this new tariffs, how are we going to collect them?
Yeah, we have two main systems of collection. We have the house-to-house collection. That is at least once a week or twice a week. In the contract, it's twice a week. You say per week for picking the waste. And then we have communal container collection, where, service providers put containers at vantage points, especially our markets and lorry parks. And there, it could be that the market women are registered and they pay in bulk to the service provider. All fees are collected per parcel or per package at the container site. An attendant will be put there, and average cost is implied, and that is paid to the service provider. So it depends on the service that you are engaging, and most of the services for communal container are in low-income areas and in the markets and lorry parks. Then we have the house-to-house collection in the first and second class residential areas. And that is how it is classified.
Let's look at the house-to-house collection. First of all, when someone brings or someone comes to a service provider comes to my house to collect waste, do I pay to the service provider directly?
For house-to-house services, the bill is on monthly basis. It's not per picking. It's not. It's paid on about 4 times, or if it's twice a week, it's about 8 times in a month, and you have to pay for the tariff. And the frequency of service is also, affected, by the number of pickings. For instance, if you want your house to be picked on a daily basis because you generate high volumes of waste, then you have to pay more.
But do you pay? Do I pay to the service provider, or an official from the AMA is supposed to come and take this money from me?
Place you are supposed to pay to the service provider, provide service to you at the end of the month. House.
Very well.
Service.
If I am paying to the service provider, why should the service provider tell me that the AMA has not paid that company and hence is unable to collect waste from my house?
Paying to the service provider by the AMA is an old system. It was those days that we were paying on behalf of waste generators, that there were arrears that were in the system.
I agree, Samuel. I agree, because you said that that was what was going on in 2010. Fast forward to 2014. Earlier today, this year, or even just some weeks ago, when we were saddled with unbearable waste on our streets, the service providers claimed that the AMA was owing them, hence their inability to collect the waste from the streets. My question is, so if we have stopped this system and the service providers were giving us this reason, does it mean the AMA just sat unconcerned about the reason these service providers were giving us and washed our streets lined up with waste?
Yeah, I think our experience that these arrears accrued from around 2001 to about 2010. When we were paying per ton to the service provider. So these arrears were there since year 2010. And I think the Honorable Mayor has been saying of late those arrears to the service providers. And I think
and so bottom line, they shouldn't give us that excuse again.
No, with the increase in the tariff now, service providers are supposed to actually provide efficient and reliable service.
Okay, so if I live in a 3rd and 4th class area, which will cost me 20 cedis at the end of the year, and a collector comes to my house and is collecting monthly, how do I do the math? Do I go ahead and give that collector 20 cedis a year, or I divide it by 12 and pay, or pay what the collector feels I should pay to him or her, dependent on the amount of waste I am giving him or her, or the provider.
Yeah, the fact is that you mentioned low-income areas. For low-income areas, the payment could be daily or monthly basis, depending upon the layout of such an area. Because if the layout is poor, then you may have these smaller tricycles to pick your waste, and they collect on daily basis. They look at the volume of waste you have created. If it's just a polythene bag, they take 50%. Or 1 city.
Okay, then Samuel, why bother to classify such a neighborhood? Because then, most likely, it's a tricycle that will come and collect my waste, and that tricycle operator can decide, according to his or her discretion, what my waste costs me. It could cost me 2 cedis. 10 times that is 20 cedis, which is supposed to be what the AMA is saying we should pay at the end of the year. Why bother to classify such a neighborhood if the AMA cannot control how much a resident of that neighborhood is supposed to pay to the service provider? Why bother?
Yes, there is a challenge there. The challenge is that the tricycles are unauthorized waste collectors. With the implementation of the polluter pay system, everybody seems to become a waste collector now. Yes. Previously, when AMA was paying directly to contractors, we didn't have these waste or waste carriers in the system. Because when you go, AMA was already paying on behalf of the people. So you go and it's like nobody pays you. But now with the polluter pay, we have a lot of contractors, unauthorized contractors, who are in the system. And because the waste contractors' salary was low, and because of their inefficiencies during the period, these tricycle operators go in there, charge lower fees, and take in the waste. We don't want to get rid of them because...
Samuel, why would you want to get rid of the unauthorized necessity, considering we have... Samuel, let me land. Considering we have an overwhelming amount of waste generated in the capital city, that these authorized service providers may not be able to manage. Why bother to want to clamp down on these unauthorized people? Why wouldn't you legalize them, for lack of a better word, so that you can properly check what these people do?
Well, I think that is the way forward. We have never actually, stopped these unauthorized waste collectors because we know they are actually complementing the default, and for that matter, ensuring cleanliness in Accra.
I see.
We have an arrangement to ask them to put themselves in an association, and then become micro enterprises under the authorized contractors that we have contract with, so that they are assigned to particular areas for them to collect their waste. And
I see.
I think that process is ongoing.
Samuel, I'm gonna have you host the line. Lambert is still here. Lambert, thank you very much for your patience. I seem to have left you out of the conversation, but we had quite a chat. Sure. I mean, what a time to want to increase the fees for refuse collection in the country. What do you think?
You see, what we are talking, excuse me, what we are talking about is that it's not even necessary for us to be increasing price at this particular moment, but we have to think of what to do with our waste when generated from the various or the individuals who generate their waste. That's what we are looking at right now. But from the indication, what he's trying to say is that they are only collecting and dumping, which will not help us as a nation. We'd have to look beyond that particular point. That is what we are trying to talk about. For instance, when you increase the prices, you collect the waste. Where do you dump them? When you dump them, they are still with us. What are the end results? Would end up being infected with several...
You think the AMA has missed this priority?
Sure.
But it might need the money to do some of the things you...
Yes, but then that is where we'd have to come in from a different perspective, where other people will come in to also support them as an agency. But when they take the lead to say, okay, AMA is investing into recycling plant or into this, other people will also come on board.
I see. Lambert, we'll leave it here for now. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think about the AMA's immediate direction to want to increase the amount of money you pay for the waste you generate? Are you satisfied with the kind of service you're getting already?